Hey everyone, Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I want to talk about how Mike Tomlin opened the door for the Steelers cornerbacks to go prove themselves sooner rather than later, and why he's doing that for them and not as much the offense. We'll talk about that and hear from Mike Tomlin, Terrell Austin, and Joey Porter and Jalen Ramsey, all here on today's episode of the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find this show in your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this channel so you get all of our Monday through Friday episodes as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. Also, read my work in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette by going to post-gazette.com. All right, Steelers fans. So the preseason finale against the Panthers is a day away. And we got our chance to talk to Mike Tomlin and really a bunch of people yesterday at practice. And Mike Tomlin did something interesting when we asked him about who was going. We didn't even ask him. He straight up told us before we even got to ask him questions. But he said, like, hey, for this game, we'll still have Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward. All those guys will sit out. But everyone else who's healthy, they might practice. And I want to show you the clip of him saying that, and then also addressing why the secondary, because they're the unit that has not played a lick of anything in these first two preseason games, that being Jalen Ramsey, Darius Slay, Joey Porter Jr. Now, Juan Thornhill, Chuck Clark, absolutely, they have been. But the top three corners that the Steelers have been really excited to see work as a unit haven't. And I think it's interesting that Mike Tomlin is wanting to see them in this preseason game when it's pretty much been, hey, they've treated the preseason like they don't need to see their top guys in there. Aaron Rodgers is now going to go through the entire preseason without playing at all, as will have DK Metcalf and TJ Watt and a few others. But so why the secondary? Why the cornerbacks? And because I guess this really is just the cornerbacks, because the safeties have been practicing. Listen to how Mike Tomlin addressed it when he first said that this was going to be the case. And then when he was asked about the secondary one he wanted to see, here's Mike Tomlin from Tuesday after Steelers practice.
As far as play time, there's really four guys that I'm not considering playing: Cam, TJ, Aaron, and DK. Everyone else is under consideration. They're preparing as if they're going to play. There are a lot of variables in it, who's playing for Carolina and things of that nature that might provide worthy competition. But as I sit here today, all healthy outside of the four that I mentioned are preparing and scheduled to play. But we'll get to the stadium and we'll see what's happening on the other side, and we may alter that in some ways. But I'm hopeful that we get an opportunity to play, particularly in the secondary. I'm not worried about the overall readiness of the collective, but I just think cohesion is such a major component of what they do, the ability to communicate in stadium. It's the same reason why our young offensive front has been working. Obviously, they lack collective experience that we have in the secondary, and so they've played through some, but I am excited about maybe seeing that secondary in the stadium. But again, it'd be good to have a dance partner, Young and Chuba and others, so we'll see where all those roads lead in terms of that.
Mike, with the secondary, is it as much as you're just eager to see them together or need to see them together?
Both. There's a fine line between eager and need. But there's a collective component, a communication component, a coordination component to what they do. And if we get an opportunity to get some snaps versus some really capable people in the stadium, man, we'd appreciate it.
Now, I did think it was interesting. Mike Tomlin said there, talking about it's not like an urgency thing, but he said he wants to see the cohesion. It's not that they need to show him that they can play, but he wants to see them work through all the things that they're going to do. And you're probably sitting here saying, well, wait a second, why isn't he doing that with Aaron Rodgers and those guys? I think there's a specific reason. And I think the specific reason is because this secondary, and particularly this whole defense, but especially the secondary with the investments they've put into it, they think can be one of the best in the NFL. And for them to be the best, they need them to be sharp. The Steelers' passing attack is not going to be the best in the NFL. It's not going to be among the best in the NFL. If it is above the middle of the road in the NFL, that's a win. And I think that's what they're looking for there. And that's why I think there's not as much urgency to see them or even see the run game that we were talking about. We talked about that Alan Saunders yesterday. Mike Tomlin also kind of confirming when I asked him, he was just like, he's like, look, we haven't run the ball. I went back and charted the first team offense when the offensive line's out there has only run the ball 5 times. Wrote about this that should be out in the Post-Gazette as well, as far as why they're developing the O-line or how they're developing the O-line. And Mike Tomlin said, yeah, we're collecting a lot of other data right now. And I think that, and I hear that. So the question, if you're not doing it for the offense and you're confident about the offense, why aren't you confident about this defense, especially when they're the group that has the all-pros? Like Jalen Ramsey's there. You're confident about Joey Porter Jr. Darius Slay is the vet and how it fits in. I think part of it is because this group is going to be asked a lot to do a lot more and to do a lot more of the heavy lifting for the Steelers to win football games. And they want to test out. And again, it's not to see if they can do it, but it's to say, hey, let's get some reps in where these guys can play, disguise, communicate, play fast, and play hard the way that we've seen them play in camp, because they really haven't had to have them do too much. Now, I do think it's interesting too, because last week we got to see them really with their first real test since training camp broke, and that was in the joint practice when they went up against the Buccaneers first team offense. Now, I will say, as we talked about, they lost the 2-minute drill. Mike Evans kind of did his thing, caught the winning score in the 2-minute drill. Emeka Egbuka had some plays, but I also noted that in that 2-minute drill, the pass rush really wasn't live. There was a couple times that Nick Herbig and I think TJ Watt or so whoever else was pass rushing definitely pulled up on Baker and was like, yeah, we're not going to hit him. We're going to let this play out. But the secondary wasn't playing. Did not win enough in those situations, and you were hoping that, hey, we were going up against a young, talented receiver room and with an older guy like Mike Evans leading it. But when you got a guy like Jalen McMillan and everyone else around there, and Emeka Egbuka, there's an excitement to say, hey, let's go prove ourselves. And they got beat in that practice, and that was something that they acknowledged afterwards. Now, Emeka Egbuka, when I asked, said, hey, they were playing a lot of zone and knowing the Steelers, they're going to play a lot of man. And so I asked Terrell Austin the other day, I think it was Monday actually, about that plan and why they did that when they want to be a man defense. And he kind of explained hey, we are testing a lot of other things out right now. I think what the Steelers are doing is they're trying to feel out all the different ways that they're going to be able to exploit things with this secondary, and they're confident that they can do so in so many different ways that it'll make it really hard to predict where they're coming from. But when I asked Terrell Austin, listen to how he put it as far as what the plan is and the confidence in these guys that he has in them as they're putting things together in the preseason. Here was defensive coordinator Terrell Austin from the Steelers facility on Monday when I got to talk to him.
Emeka Egbuka said after the practice, you guys ran a lot of zone coverages in that. Was that part of just testing different things out? Because I know there's been a lot of talk and excitement from your guys about playing more man coverage and being able to get those kind of assignments this year.
Yeah, we were working on our stuff. There was no game plan. So one of the things I like to do when we're going against a new opponent, that gives me an opportunity to play and look at some different things. Allows us to iron out some kinks. We know what it looks like against our offense. What's it look like against the league? And so, we'll call some things that maybe we wouldn't have called, but to get a look at it. And so I'm not, we might have played some zone, and I don't know what he was expecting, but it was just for us. To me, it was a work day. It was a practice day. What can I call? What can I do to get the most out of the practice for our guys? It wasn't about winning that scrimmage, winning that day. It was about how do I get the best work for my guys that we can teach off before we get going into the regular season.
How do you know those guys? How do you know those guys in the secondary that haven't been playing in the preseason? How do you know how do you get them enough work? How do you know they'll be ready?
I think a lot of it stems from we have some veteran guys, even though they may not have been here, but you have veteran guys that usually know how to prepare and get themselves ready. When they are working together, when they are in camp together, when we did have our full unit together, I thought the way they work together is good. They communicate well. Not a lot of, I think they get it, where there's not a lot of back and forth in the sense of, hey, you call this what? It's like, hey, here's a call, let's go, let's move. And I think that's really good in that regard. I mean, we'll find out and in September how good we really are in terms of using taking that communication to the stadium, but I feel confident in it.
As we know, when we talked with the Steelers players last year, there was a lot of frustration towards the end of the year about guys not being able to communicate at the level that some of the guys wanted. Deshaun Elliott, Minka Fitzpatrick were two of the louder people about that. They were saying like, hey, like, there's certain guys that, you can't leave these guys wide bleeping open, as Deshaun Elliott said. And the Steelers, Minka Fitzpatrick, before he was traded, was like, hey, if you're not on the same page with the rest of us, you're not going to be here. And then ironically, he's not around anymore. But I think what Mike Tomlin might be wanting to see here is he wants to see how well this group can communicate in a live game situation, in the opportunity to talk fast, play fast, and then hit and win fast. And that's what this secondary was put together to do, in my opinion. And they're a big part of what the Steelers, if they're going to be a really good team this year, they need this secondary to not just be decent, not just to be good, but to be great, to be locked down, to be a problem. And part of being a problem is being hard to guess what they're going to do. I think there's going to be a lot of disguises they're going to try this year. And it's those disguises, it's calling those disguises, knowing how to set them up so you actually fool a quarterback and fool the offense into thinking that you're in an alignment that you're not actually in. And then simultaneously doing that in a way that allows you to take advantage of what they think is there and attacking that. I want to talk more about that next here because Joey Porter and Jalen Ramsey play a big role in that, and they talked about each other when I was asking them questions about each other yesterday after and before practice. We'll talk about that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, remind you this show is brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, me and Locked On Steelers listeners are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. I've used Yahoo Fantasy for years, and the updates they're rolling out this month are wild in the best way. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August to kick it off. They just dropped the Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a new killer way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team each week gets eliminated until there's only one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Go to yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Let's make this fantasy season the best one yet, only at Yahoo Fantasy. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue our episode here. We're going to talk all about the secondary today because I thought it was very interesting, again, the way Tomlin was like, oh, no, we kind of want to see these guys. Now, also important to note, the way that Mike Tomlin said he wants to see them against some of the better guys with the Panthers. And listen, the Panthers have an interesting roster. Go check out Julian Council and Locked On Panthers. I believe I made an appearance on his show to give him some heads up on what's going on with the Steelers. But it appears David Canales, the head coach of the Panthers, is going to rest the starters, which is disappointing because there's a lot of really interesting players on this team. I like Xavier Legette, Ted McMillan, the star young receiver coming out the draft. Bryce Young, of course. Chuba Hubbard, as Mike Tomlin brought up. There's weapons on this team that could be interesting to cover. But if the starters are sitting, it kind of, I think, defeats the purpose of what the Steelers want to do here, because they wanted to get them good work against the ones of a different team and to see how they could set things up here. Now, again, I don't think that there's much to be panicking about, and I don't think the Steelers are necessarily panicking over them losing to the Buccaneers in the 2-minute drill and not being able to finish that out. But I do think there's a sense that, like, hey, this secondary is going to have a lot asked of it to take things on, not just to just take away number one wide receivers, not just to be really good, but to be turnover creators, be the dominant force that wins the Steelers a lot of games. And it's going to take time, it's going to take effort, it's going to take coordination, and it's going to take a persistence to push through all of it, even when they're struggling. I think that's really what Mike Tomlin wants to see is, hey, let's put these guys out here. Let's see what happens. What happens when they're told to communicate in the live stadium, not just in practice. And how do they react to things? How do they play things? And can they be the unit that the Steelers are thinking that they're going to be? I think that they can. I like the way these guys have looked all summer. But to the point of the whole thing, this is why you play the game. You want it, just because you were a highlight machine in training camp does not mean that you are a unit that's definitely dominant. And I think that that's what the Steelers need. They need a dominant DBs room, especially cornerbacks room. And I think that that's something that's going to have to be proven over a bit. But part of what with the dominance comes who gets to be the top dog. Now, Jalen Ramsey said as much on, I think, the Pivot, and I think he also said it on Cam Hayward's podcast, I believe. But he basically said, like, hey, Coach C told me, like, I'm the number one guy. When we're facing the number one guy, I'm getting that guy. But he also did note, like, hey, Joey Porter Jr., not to disrespect him, he's got a lot of talent, and and he wants to see them kind of prove who's the better corner throughout the year, which is an interesting thing there. But I got to ask Joey Porter because Jalen Ramsey made the comment about him taking the number ones. Number one's a lot. I got to ask Joey Porter how he felt about that, including and also how he felt about how the Steelers are running a lot more man this year and what it'll allow them to do. Here was Joey Porter Jr. before practice on Tuesday when we got a chance to catch up with him in the locker room.
Run a lot more man coverage this year.
How have you felt about just the assignments, that the way that they're calling, the way that EA is doing things
different at all this year versus
past years?
Yeah, we're a little bit more man heavy, but I felt like kind of was a man heavy group, especially with the people we have on our edge. Especially with the people we have on our edge, we let them work. But Coach T told us earlier we got the guys to play man in heavy situational moments, and that's what we're willing to do and ready to do.
We saw Jalen. He was talking on the Pivot about how, like, there's conversations about who gets who, and he said, like, oh, I'm gonna be the one that gets Jamar. What's that like? You've been the number one guy. What was it like for you?
I mean, it was funny. We be going back and forth with it. He said he's gonna give number one. I still think I'm gonna get number one. I say I'm gonna get number one. But we know Coach is gonna let us both rock out and get the number one guy. But it's just all fun and games, just really just growing with each other and playing the ball together.
When I was watching him in practice in camp, like, it seemed like he was making an enemy out of everyone that wasn't on the defense. Mm-hmm. What's that energy like, just being around a guy that was like, he's like, and it's just doggedness. There's aggressive, but he was kind of just letting everybody know.
Yeah, he just wired different. That's what I've been a fan of him for a long time, just because how he carried on the field and how he expresses himself throughout every play he makes. So, it just gets the defense going. It gets us all riled up, and I had to try to add on to that as much as possible.
First of all, I want to apologize for the choppiness of that audio. There was some weird stuff going on with the mic there. It kept turning it on and off. So I apologize if that sounded choppy. I wasn't able to clear that up in post. But still, I think you got the picture there. Joey Porter Jr., he wants to be the top dog. But there's a respect and a deference for Jalen Ramsey because, again, Jalen Ramsey is a guy that Joey Porter's been watching since I think he was in high school. So, like, there's a matter of respect there that he's going to give him. And there's also a matter of respect of just not just his age and his history, but also how good he is right now. And I think that there's that's a thing there. But Jalen Ramsey also was kind of like, not opposed to the idea that if the Steelers feel like it's right for Joey Porter to take the number one on a situation, that he'd be against it. And I thought it was interesting hearing from him after practice as well when he kind of addressed it and he gave Joey Porter some kudos. Here was Jalen Ramsey. We get our first time really talking to him since he moved into training camp. Jalen Ramsey after Steelers practice on Tuesday.
What do you appreciate the most out of this coaching staff, from Mike to Terrell to Gerald, and how they've set up the approach for you guys as a cornerback room for what they can do in this defense?
I just respect the straightforwardness that they've given us, the clarity they've given us, and expectations, but also at the same time, kind of at times the freedom to express ourselves and be who we're going to be out there on the field and be competitors. Yeah, I'll say that.
Two more.
You talked about being the guy who takes the number one matchup when you guys are going up against Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson. Joey Porter Jr., though, he's like, hey, I still want my shot at it. What do you appreciate about his competitiveness as a young guy who admits he looks up to you in a lot of ways?
Yeah, that's how it should be. Joe should want those matchups, and there will be times where he'll get those matchups just because of different things that I have to do, but and I hope he continues to challenge me throughout the year to want those opportunities. And if what's best for the defense and the team is Joey being on a guy, then I'm cool with that. I'll go float around, and not float around, but I'll go do another responsibility or another role to help the team out. But yeah, for now, I'll take on those roles when asked to do that, and we'll just feed off each other.
So first, I wanted to ask him that question about the coaching staff, because I noticed how they were kind of letting Jalen Ramsey kind of just set the tone for the rest of the unit. And you saw me ask Joey Porter Jr. about it as well. Like, hey, what's it like feeding off that energy? And he's like, hey, it's intense, but you appreciate it. And it's something like at practice, and I'm talking to these guys about it, but, at practice, you notice everyone kind of follows Jalen Ramsey when they're in the cornerbacks. Like, there's like one point of practice, they're kind of like, they'll be doing sprints, and like they'll kind of race each other. And when they're doing stuff that's not directly affiliated with a team drill, Jalen Ramsey's leading it. And it reminded me of when Joe Hayden came to the Steelers secondary. And, that was, so I think it was like my second or third year, because he came in 2017, I think it was. But either way, Joe Hayden, when he came to the Steelers, there was no bona fide leader of the secondary. There were guys that were kind of growing in their roles in the secondary. And as soon as Joe Hayden arrived, it was like the stretch lines all revolved around Joe Hayden. Everyone was just like, hey, gotta, that guy's the new dog. He's gonna lead this group, and he did. He was a heck of a leader, a heck of a guy. I thought, and I get the sense of Jalen Ramsey that he is that kind of guy as well. Even with a guy like Darius Slay in the room, who is an All Pro himself as well. But the thing is, though, is that I also think that there's that added sense that Jalen Ramsey's talking about, that like he can be this villain, like we talked about. I think he can be the ultimate villain in the NFL this year if he plays to his potential, and him and the Steelers click with what he brings to the table and what they ask of him and how they're going to disguise him and move things around. But I think, again, that's why Mike Tomlin wants to see more of this. It's not just that he thinks that Jalen Ramsey needs to prove himself or that Joey Porter needs to prove himself, although I do think this is Joey's prove-it year for his future contract. But I think he's less concerned about the overall talent, and he's more concerned with, he wants to see how these guys can do the execute the disguises that they want to put in place to get to lead to the kind of turnover opportunities and the different things that they're going to try to set up for them this year. Because again, if the secondary can be that good, that chaotically good, that just causes so many problems for offenses, that could be the key to making the Steelers an elite defense. And again, they've been a good defense, and even a very good defense for the past few years. They've been a top 10 defense in scoring in each of the last 3 seasons, or first 3 seasons under Terrell Austin. And I look at this year as an opportunity to say, hey, this is your chance to step it up, because you're still keeping TJ Watt and Cam Hayward. They went and got you, new corners to help you with, and they're trying to address how teams have been attacking you. And I think that they've done that. But now they need these guys to follow through and be the kind of players that they added them to be. And I think Jalen Ramsey, it's interesting. He's talking about how open the Steelers are and how they're letting him kind of be who he thinks he needs to be. But also at the same time, like, he's working with Joey Porter Jr. He's believing like, hey, when that guy's ready, that guy's ready. And how he appreciates him as a competitor. That's what I'm intrigued to see about this unit is, can they balance all of that, the competitiveness of who wants the ones, when they do go up against the talent, like the Bengals receivers, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, how do they split that up? How do they, communicate? How do they try to fool Joe Burrow into mistakes? Because, years ago, that was Minka Fitzpatrick's thing. He used to intercept Joe Burrow a lot. And they need to be able to do those types of things in these games. And so I think part of what Mike Tomlin might want to see is just a little bit of run in there of how the defense goes. But again, if David Canales, the Panthers coach, isn't playing their starters, maybe Tomlin does hold these guys back and say, we'll try to get these things done throughout practices leading up to week 1 against the Jets. But with all this talk about the cornerbacks, we still got to talk about the safeties, because they play a big role in this as well, even though they're not going to be the turnover creators that, Minka Fitzpatrick was in his prime with the Steelers. I think there's still a key element to watch here with the safeties. Joey Porter broke that down a little bit, and we got to talk to Chuck Clark. We'll talk about all of that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. Be right back. But first, I want to remind you the show is also brought to you by Gametime. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money that you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Gametime makes it all possible because Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier as well, and they make buying tickets fast and simple wherever you go. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Tired of endless scrolling to try to find your best deal? Gametime's zone deals pick the best seats in your section for you. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue our episode here today. I have a full secondary episode here. I haven't done that in a long time, but looking at, again, what the Steelers are trying to do this year with the secondary. They're trying to be a more aggressive unit that lines up in different places, blitzes from the secondary, but also, creates coverage opportunities for these guys to get turnovers, to fool quarterbacks into things. And it takes disguises. And with disguises, you need everybody on point with disguises. You need your corners to be able to sell press when they're backing off, or to sell if they're backing off and come up and bring different heat from different directions, to fool them with zones and different looks. And where's the deep safety? Is it a cover one? Is it cover two? Is it cover three? Those types of things are all huge, but you need guys that are athletic and smart enough to be able to do those things. And the Steelers went and got Juan Thornhill and Chuck Clark as guys to fill in that spot. And so far, both seem to be adequate for what they're needed right now. And I didn't even say better than adequate. I think that's unfair to them, because I think they've been good in training camp and in the preseason. Chuck Clark's filling up the hole. He's even playing a little bit of slot. Juan Thornhill looks like he's a good deep safety option that's going to keep the lid on the play. I think there's a lot of good here, and I think that there's that's a really good sign for the Steelers. They don't need the safety position to be the turnover creators. It'd be nice if they were, but they don't need the safety position to be the turnover creators and to manage these things. They need they need the safeties to keep the top on the defense. They need them to keep the big play from happening, to keep people, keep the game contained there. And I think that's where Juan Thornhill and Chuck Clark come into play. But again, they had to kind of adjust to things because they got Juan Thornhill got added late in the spring, and then Chuck Clark during training camp. But Joey Porter Jr. had some positive things to say about how they've handled things and where they are in the Steelers secondary. What have you thought about, Minka was a huge part of you guys' second the last few years, but Chuck and Juan are new guys that have come in. How have you seen them come in and help communicate and keep everyone on point?
Man, yeah, they've done a great job. They came in and learned the playbook pretty fast. They've been making their own plays out there, so we're all excited and happy about their growth so far. Picking up the defense, being able to communicate with the defense and put people in the right position.
Every time I see y'all at practice, I see Gerald Alexander. Even if you knock down a pass, he's telling you to run after the ball, do everything. What's he been like this year? Because I know he's reunited with you. Now you've had a full camp. What do you like about what he's doing with you guys?
Man, we just like the energy he brings into the room. We're going to get the same guy every day. He wants the best out of us. And we're just going to continue to put out great tape for him and just for this team. And he's really just wanting us to grow as a person and a player.
Now, when it comes to the safety, first of all, Gerald Alexander, that man is the most animated DBs coach I have ever seen, but in a good way. He is challenging these guys. If they're making a mistake, he's pushing them. And I've seen that in the joint practice. I've seen that at training camp. I've seen that in games. He is very loud. You can hear him. You can feel him. He is letting you know, hey, you got to do this at this time, right here. Bang. He wants exactness from his guys. And I think that's where I think that's where it's kind of welcomed there, right? But with the safeties, talking about how they fit, I think that there's an expectation for them to kind of fit in nicely, not make too much noise, but do be good playmakers. And Joey Porter Jr. has given them a lot of praise for it and saying hey, there's an appreciation for what they've been able to come in and do and how they're helping keep things together. But we got a chance to talk to Chuck Clark because there's a lot of different roles that are being asked of these guys, and Chuck Clark's one of them. He kind of lines up in the slot. He'll line up in blitz. He'll line up deep. He kind of moves around a little bit. And I think the Steelers kind of like versatility in that way, because again, it's about disguising where your stars are going to be. And if Jalen Ramsey and a lot of times is lining up in the slot, and then all of a sudden you look over and it's Chuck Clark, and you're like, wait a minute, where's number 5 at? And then he's on your number 1 receiver, and you got to snap the ball because the play clock's low, and you got to throw that ball to the number 1 receiver, and then Jalen Ramsey jumps it. I think that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to set it up where you're going to have to guess every play where people are, and that could be a benefit for the Steelers. It could make people confused on the other side of the ball, but it could also backfire if they're not able to be as coordinated as they want to be there. So I think that there's some challenges with that, but don't take it from me. Take it from Chuck Clark, who I got to talk with Tuesday before practice, just about what his outlook is for how things have started and what they're asking of him at the safety position.
Chuck, you came in the middle of the camp, so you had a lot of adjustment, but it seems like you're flying around there like you've been here a couple years. You've been in the NFL, you've been in the NFL, but seeing run defense, you're flying up in the hole, taking up certain gaps. How just learning to play this defense, they're seeming to ask a lot of you guys a lot of communication and pre-snap movement?
I think as a safety, I mean that's required. You got to pick up the defense on the fly. You're a signal caller basically, just like on the offensive side. So I think I just took my time, understand the playbook when I first got a little extra time in and figuring it out. But I mean, at the end of the day, football is football. So I mean, I do know how to play football, but right. It's just putting different terminology to it at the end of the day sometimes. But I think, like you said, to what you just said, I mean, just taking the time to understand it and learn it, because I can't go out there and mess up everybody else, especially being, like I said, being a signal caller on defense.
I was just talking to Joey, and he gave you and Juan a lot of credit for just coming in here, being pros, and keeping everything moving. What's it been like meshing with this cornerback room that now has 2 former All-Pros and a young guy people are really excited about?
I mean, we got guys that we can count on out there. You can almost kind of forget about, and not saying forget about it in that sense, but you just let them be out there and play, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, that's great to have guys like that, for real.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought I saw you, helping out in the slot a lot as well. Just, you have several different positions in this defense. What does that do for you guys when you, Juan, Jalen, so many different guys can move around, and it makes it so the quarterbacks have to guess where you're going to be at?
Just the more you can do, having different versatility, I mean, not getting the beat on certain things. I've talked to certain guys on the offensive side, from my years past, and they, haven't played against me before, and it's like, yeah, we didn't know how to count you in the count or whatnot because of your number and then where you're lining up at. So, I mean, it helps us, honestly.
Seems like you guys are also blitzing from the secondary a lot this year. I didn't notice that as much from this team last year. I know you weren't part of it, but how excited does that make you to know that, hey, not only can I be confusing people as where I'm covering, but also where I could be blitzing from to send heat?
That's fun. That's exciting for a DV. You could get a chance to make some splash plays. I mean, get back there and cause havoc. So get the ball out, score on defense with ourselves. So, I mean, that's exciting.
Get back there and cause havoc. I think that's a big part of what they're hoping that this secondary can do, is causing that havoc for opposing offenses who are trying to just figure things out, get things together. This is a secondary. And again, this is why I think that that Mike Tomlin wants to play them. I don't know if he still will because of, the Panthers resting their starters, but I think this is what Mike Tomlin wants to see. He wants to see them go out and just look physical and look the part and play the part of being the aggressive, defenders in the secondary. And if they do well, maybe this is just, they're like, okay, you got it done. One drive, you're out. But I do think that there is a challenge here for the safeties to fit into that, because these are high profile cornerbacks. These are guys that are, everyone's really excited about these safeties. They gotta come back, and they gotta be able to communicate while everyone's playing aggressive. They're often the ones that, sometimes they'll be aggressive. Sometimes they'll be able to, win the slot the way Chuck Clark is lining up to do sometimes. But I also think that there's going to be a lot of times where they're going to just be the ones like, hey, your job is to not let someone get behind you. Your job is to keep, this game contained. And Juan Thornhill even said at the beginning of training camp when he first arrived, he was like, a lot of people in Cleveland brought me down because they didn't understand that my role wasn't to create turnovers, it was to keep the big play from happening, which we did. And I think the same thing of Minkah Fitzpatrick. The only difference is that Minkah Fitzpatrick was costing you $20 million a year, and you basically converted that into Jalen Ramsey money. So Jalen Ramsey is going to be closer to the ball to help with creating more turnovers. But bottom line to me is that the Steelers feel like they still have to be the secondary and the defense that they really want to be, which I think legitimately is the number one at some point. They want to be that number one defense. But I think part of what you're going there is there's going to be a lot of boxes to check when it comes to the different positions, and especially in the secondary. It's going to be really interesting to see just how this unit does try to find a way to mesh as the season gets going, and who steps up to be sort of the leaders next to Jalen Ramsey, because he's definitely the leader right now before anyone else. So lots of things on the secondary. We'll talk more about the run defense tomorrow as we get you ready for Steelers Panthers Thursday night preseason football all here. Thanks again for tuning into the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, all my social media handles, same place everywhere at Carter Critiques. You can read my work in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette by going to post-gazette.com. You can find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this channel to get all of our Monday through Friday episodes. Back here tomorrow with another episode here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.